So last night I went to the Bay GOP primary debates, and there were two of them, and each one lasted about an hour. The first one was between Brian Cloudis and Griff Griffiths. They are running for the House seat in the state House seat. And that seat has been held for the last 8 years by Jay Trumbull. So he term limits out. Jay Trumbull term limits out. That's an open seat. There's no incumbent. And so Griff Griffiths is a Bay County commissioner and has been for 6 years. Brian Cloudis is really never held office. So he's sort of an outsider running for office, and he likes it that way. That was a tremendous hour-long debate moderated by Daryl Day. Remember Daryl Day from Talk Radio 101? And then there was another debate for the state Senate seat. Now, the state Senate seat is also vacant, and it's being pursued by former House Speaker Jay Trumbull and another outsider, Regina Piazza, former Air Force. So 2-hour-long debates, and it was put on by the Bay Republican Executive Committee. And I've got with us my good friend, Tho Bishop, who is going to analyze a little bit of what he saw last night. And first of all, Tho and I have been doing this for about a decade on the radio, and it is so good to have you, man.
Hey, glad to join you, Bernie. Yeah, it's been a while.
So I want to make sure everybody knows what you're doing now. Of course, you're with the Mises Institute, the free market think tank, one of my favorite places, the smartest people I know when it comes to economics. And but tell everybody what you do, and then we'll talk about the debates.
So I've been honored to be serving as the Bay Republican Party vice chairman for the executive committee since last year. We've had a lot of fun with the committee. I think that we are one of the, we've been very active in the way that we've taken stands in a way that I think separates us from a lot of other GOPs out there, but I think it does make a difference. And then I'm also president of the Bay County Republican Roundtable, which is we have speakers come in. It's kind of more of a social discussion sort of group. And so between those two roles, I've been very active within local Republican politics for a while.
Well, this is quite an election. Jay Trumbull looks strong, and the first debate, I'd really like to focus, if we could, though, on the first debate, because I think, just like we saw in Panama City Beach, I think we could have an upset here. I think it's a close race, and I think both of them actually did pretty good. I think Griff Griffiths was Griff Griffiths, and I think Brian Cloudis was Brian Cloudis. And I saw a lot more head nodding when the outsider Brian Cloudis was speaking. But what struck you about that first debate?
Yeah, again, first and foremost, again, I think I'm just glad that we're having elections, right? We're having competitive primaries. That we were able to get all the candidates to agree to do a debate like we had last night. I think that's one of the frustrations that a lot of people have, is that, we end up getting a lot of non-contested elections, some of which have benefited friends of mine. And so I'm not complaining about that aspect of it. It's just, when we think about, what it is to be a republic, if we think about election integrity, being able to have genuine contest of ideas, of personalities, of different alignments, because there's always that was a big, I think, fault line that really played out in the House side last night, is that you do have different groups that end up being affiliated. And so who are the people that should be representing us? Griff, I think he highlighted his strengths. I live on the beach side. Griff Griffiths has been my county commissioner for a while now. I think he does that job very well. And he leaned into being the experienced candidate. I think you see him talk about the relationships Bay County has built with Tallahassee during Hurricane Michael response time, things like that. Those are things that play to his strengths. I think, though, that it's interesting to see just the energy that Brian Cloudis was able to bring last night, and for someone who, again, I'm full disclosure, I'm a friend of Brian Cloudis. I support him in this race. not from a position within the party itself, but just as a citizen of Bay County. He's the sort of person that I want to see more in Republican politics. But he overexceeded my highest expectations I had coming in. The composure that he had, he was able to talk broadly about very important substantive issues. And again, you could definitely, I think, tell within the energy of the crowd last night that Brian was definitely someone that amplified things.
And I'll tell you, I'm somebody who's been watching closely local politicians, officials, and also those who support their campaigns, some of the campaign managers and so on and so forth. And I saw more concerned faces last night. I really did in that first debate. The ones who are supporting and assisting Griff Griffiths, they were concerned. Tho, do you think that this is really a close race? Do you think that Brian Cloudis has a chance to win? It would be a tremendous upset in Bay County.
Again, acknowledging any biases that I have. I mean, I've never seen a candidate knock on as many doors as Brian Cloudis has, and we're still months away from the election. He seems to be everywhere right now. You can see it, and the thing is, again, this is an aspect. Again, we have had the politicians in Bay County have been operating 20 years behind the times when it comes to the way they communicate to the public, the way they utilize social media. I get mocked at, for having these concerns by certain people, but I'm sorry it matters, because what you need is the public seeing someone that sounds like they do when it comes to talking politics, that has the same passion, that has the same fear. And you never want to hold, just personalities too much against people, but I think that Griff looked a little stiff compared to Brian, a little angry at times. And again, I understand that, it's difficult to feel that you're being, why should he be treated, as why is this even a contest going up against someone that moved to the area 2 years ago as Brian had? I could understand having that sort of feelings about things. The problem is that I think that could be a turnoff to people. And I think that one of the moments that really surprised me, and I think kind of goes to some of the larger Republican divides, was the 2020 election question, where both candidates were asked, was the 2020 election stolen? And
so
Brian,
before you go any further with that was huge. That was huge. I want to take just a quick moment to thank my sponsors, and I want you to explain the incredible moment. And then I'm also going to share my incredible moment. And before you go, I'm hoping to find out what are the important issues in the state legislature and what are the different kinds of Republicans and the types of Republicans that you would like to see right after this.
You want to look good? You want to feel good? Little John's Big and Tall is where it's at. Right across the street from Sky's Pizza Pie, 5700 North Davis Highway. You can find out more online at littlejohnsbigandtall.com. He's also a member of the iTex trading community, where your iTex dollars are welcome.
When your life is on the line, hire the lawyer who lives in our community, works in our community, and worships in our community. I'm El Saulene, your Panama City Beach lawyer. 850-215-0628.
All right, Tho Bishop, I agree. The question that Daryl Day, the moderator, asked, do you believe, and I'll try to get it right, you can help me, do you believe that the 2020 election had widespread fraud? And do you believe that the election was legitimate? And do you believe Joe Biden is legitimately elected president? Pretty much big question.
Right. And Griff's response was, and he gave this sort of nuanced response about, well, I know the elections here were fine. I don't know, how things went abroad, basically, but I know that our elections are fine and the governor is doing things. And I think when it comes to that point, I think that the state of Florida has taken good steps forward. I think Mark Anderson is the best supervisor of elections in the country. If we could clone him, I don't think we'd have any election issues, but that didn't really go to the main point. And I think this is so important because, to me, I think one of the defining Republican characteristics right now is this regime a legitimate regime? Right? Is the federal government, as it is acting, does it represent us? And that goes straight to the question of the election. And if you can't say that Joe Biden, that this was an unfair election, that Joe Biden was foisted upon us, I think that shows, at the very least, being completely out of step with the majority of the Republican opinion here. And again, I don't understand, trying to retreating to a point of nuance rather than coming out and showing that you have the same views as the Republicans out there. And it's the contrast there with Jay Trumbull, who is coming from the state, someone who I criticized for not being more outspoken about that. He had no hesitancy in saying, you're right that the election was stolen. I think it's a very interesting sort of dynamic there where I think
it was surprising to see Jay say that. It was surprising to see Jay say that.
Great to see.
And I'm glad that he did. Griff wouldn't say it, but what about Brian Cloudis's response?
Well, yeah, again, I think Brian had yes, this election was stolen within the first 30 seconds of his opening talk. So, but yeah, he killed it with his response. And again, like that comes from that dynamic where, Brian doesn't have the experiences, within a position like county commissioner. He himself was politically apathetic for a very long time. I don't even believe he voted in the 2016 election, but he's one of those Americans that have become turned on with everything that they saw around them, during the last 4 or 5 years. And ultimately, I think those are sort of people that are so important to any sort of Republican, anti-regime coalition right now. And it was good to see someone speak to that.
I want to show you my favorite moment, though. It was Griffiths had just basically tried to discredit Brian Cloudis by saying, you're not even a strong Republican. You are who you hang around. You have a Democrat city commissioner, speaking of Judy Tinder from Lynn Haven, who I think is fantastic. She switched parties. She became a Republican. So you've even got former Democrats, he said, endorsing you as though that would be a bad thing. Here's how Brian handled that question.
I've never had my pocket padded, for the record, just to be perfectly honest. That's absolutely ludicrous. While there are people in this community that are in trouble and under investigation, I'm not one of them. You are who you surround yourself with, correct? Mr. Cloudis has an endorsement from a city councilwoman who's a registered Democrat. So you are who you surround yourself with. So I think she's actually said online she would change her party affiliation to vote for Mr. Cloudis. So I'm just telling you, you are who you hang out with. Thank you.
I see you over there, Mr. Cloudis. 45 seconds response.
I think that's a miracle. I converted one, y'all. I mean, honestly, hey, I'm doing the work and pounding the pavement. Judy Tinder is an incredible she's an incredible city commissioner in Lynn Haven. She has been so kind and so incredible. So to discount her just because she is a Democrat, she changed parties because she so believed in having someone who was going to represent her. So I take pride. Guess what? I used to work in a very liberal theater industry. I walked away from that movement as well because this is the movement of unapologetically being patriot and unapologetically do the right thing. So, Judy, I love you. Welcome to the right side.
Welcome to the right side, he said. And that got the biggest response. I mean, that was an amazing response, I thought, though.
Well, and it was a sort of organic moment that is special. Like, this is politics is a stage. And there's certain moments that, it has nothing to do with ideas. It's not about reading big books. It's just a response. And it's an emotional reaction. That's what you saw there. And one of the things about that.
I was going to say Jody with the Beacon of Bay County. By the way, if you're not on Facebook looking at the Beacon of Bay County, you should follow it. They're doing great work covering local issues. She said it was a Reagan type moment, sort of like when Reagan was asked in the second debate if he was too old, and he said he wouldn't use his opponent's youth and inexperience against him, and turned it around in one sentence. Basically, she called it a Reagan type moment, and I happen to agree.
Well, and that's really interesting. Reagan, a former Democrat, Donald Trump, a former Democrat, like that. This entire mentality, I think, is that was an unforced error from Griff, and I think even his people would admit that today. Is what it is. But it was the other aspect of it, though, that is important for your viewers to understand is that this race is not only a Republican race now. Technically, Judy Tinder no longer even had to change her voter registration, because when it comes down to August, this state house race is going to be on every single ballot because there is no opponent to the Republican winner there. And so you're going to have Democrats being able to vote in this. You're going to have NPAs, independents, libertarians, all have a say in who wins between Brian Cloudis and Griffiths. And so a statement like that, Is it an interesting play there, Cotton? If we'll see how that one plays out.
Yeah. So, Tho, before you leave, tell me what you think the most important things that the state legislature, our next state House representative and state senator, what type of things should they be focused on here in Florida, especially in light of the federal environment right now?
Well, I know there's going to be certain things that I think DeSantis is going to push from his own agenda. It wouldn't surprise me. I know there was a court setback today, but I have a feeling that abortion issues are going to be back on the table for DeSantis. I think he's going to continue his crusades on the education side of things and do some very exciting things there. Some of the stuff that I think goes more under the radar to me is, the number one issue, and I know it was asked during the debate last night, was affordability. We have to find ways of lowering the burden of prices on our residents. And so I would like to see expansion of the use of bed tax dollars to be able to offset government infrastructure costs, perhaps even be able to use to help down payments for service industry workers, which to me is a big deal. That's different than, say, like an affordable housing program. Like the goal there would be home ownership, which I think has very good sort of conservative aspects built within. How do we, catch up to the demand that is really, there's a lot of great benefits that come with being the place that everyone wants to move to, but the affordability aspect is first and foremost, and it's a type of statecraft that conservatives, often can kind of not do a great job with, right? They can kind of overly emphasize, I think, corporate tax credits and things like that, where we still have to worry on, average residents being able to have a family. Particularly at younger ages and things like that. And so those are sort of dynamics that, that is where I think you're going to see a major policy shift within Florida and really nationally on where Republicans are going to lead going forward.
I'll tell you what's big for me is constitutional carry. I'm tired of dilly-dallying around with this, and I would love to see this red flag law repealed. I don't like it. And Griff said, if that's what the governor wants, then I'll do it. Mm-hmm. Pretty much. And Cloud has said, that's what I want to do no matter what, because it's the right thing to do. And I thought his answer was super strong. What are your thoughts? Are we going to get constitutional carry in Florida or not?
I think we will. I have reason to believe, and it came out, Griff pointed out that, the reason why the Florida legislature held up constitutional carry in the past is because they didn't want to give Anthony Sabatini, state house member who's been sponsor of it, a victory. And again, I think about it, and he was okay with that. He was endorsing that sort of behavior. And imagine bragging about having the view that that a personal relationship of a legislator should dictate the rights that the citizens have. Like, again, these are things I don't think I think that he is coming from it from a background of being, actually being a legislator, knowing how big personal relations
being
are,
on the
getting
inside.
things done. I think that, I don't think he means anything particularly ill will, of it. But I think the perception of that, that's the aspect of politics that I think people very much do not like.
So just so everybody understands, constitutional carry was pushed by Anthony Sabatini, state House representative, who is, he's not sort of a establishment kind of guy. He goes out on a limb and pushes for things and will criticize GOP establishment and or our leadership, actually. And they don't like that. And so Griffiths yesterday said, well, if it weren't for Anthony Sabatini, maybe we could have got it. But he just doesn't play well in the sandbox. Those were his words. To which Cloud has said, well, maybe it's time not to play well in the sandbox, but we need to listen to people and stop this petty infighting. I thought it was a great answer.
Well, and the person who Anthony Sabatini is very much like, actually, is our good friend Mike Hill, who is running for election again out, I believe, in Florida.
He is running again. I just talked about that. Yeah.
And so again, very much the same way. Where here you had, a passionate, true conservative taken out by his own party. They tried to do the same thing for Sabatini. They back Christopher Sproles, the House majority, or the Speaker of the House. They put him on the backbench. Again, look. I can understand why Sabatini drives some of his colleagues, crazy. The problem is, though, is that Sabatini also had a massive audience. I mean, he has the same sort of audience reach that sitting members of Congress have.
Like,
and so again, the inability for the Republican leadership to recognize that, okay, we may not like the guy, but he speaks to something larger than us, and didn't then try to co-opt him rather than being this like that. That's a problem. And yeah, that's
isn't Sabatini running for Congress?
He is. He's running, I believe, down in Florida 7 is the district. I consider him the front runner there. It is a very heavy Republican district. But yeah, when you get Matt Gaetz and the Florida Man caucus between Matt Gaetz, Anthony Sabatini, and Byron Donalds, who's another great congressman down in the southern part of the state. That'll be a lot of fun to see going forward. One more thing on the constitutional carry bit, though, because again, I want to emphasize something else that stood up is, again, it's very encouraging to see on the Senate side, Jay Trumbull, who we've criticized in the past for the red flag law, and I think that was still a bad vote. Him putting his stamp of approval on constitutional carry. Action means more than words. That's a good sign. Regina Piazza had the same energetic, in many ways, sort of energy to her that Brian had at times. She was obviously a big supporter of it. So it is reassuring that within both these races, we have people committed to this issue. Because again, gun rights, I think, it's not only an important constitutional issue, but it's another one of those things to kind of make sure that we get the right people moving to Florida. People that respect gun rights are going to tend to be better and safer neighbors to be around, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Tho, I know you got to run. Tho Bishop, my good friend, vice chair of the GOP Republican Executive Committee and with the Mises Institute, and one of the great thinkers in America. And I'm not joking. Tho, I'm so proud of what you're doing, how you're growing. I see you on national shows. And as a matter of fact, before we go, you were, this is unbelievable, days before Rush Limbaugh died, one of his very last shows, he talked for several minutes about Tho Bishop and an article you wrote. And I know you, as a young teenager even, he was a big influence on your life. Just tell us what that was like. What were you doing? How'd you find out about it? That's unbelievable.
Oh, it was surreal. I mean, I was not listening to him at the time. It's all of a sudden my phone and social media and everything kind of just exploded. I'd never gotten more messages within the course of 10 seconds than when he mentioned my name on the radio.
He didn't just mention it. He read your article.
And just hearing the voice and him praising something I'd written. It was absolutely an incredible moment and something I will always treasure.
All right, man. I'll let you go. I'll talk to you later.
Well, one thing that if any of your audience is interested, next Wednesday at the Captain Anderson's event room, Marco Rubio, our senator, is going to be there talking about national issues. We have great catering from Grits Coastal Southern Catering. I have a bias there with the owner. But it's $50 to attend. Comes with a great meal. And again, the opportunity to meet Senator Rubio, who will be here in Bay County. So just wanted to get that out there and pitch that.
Absolutely, Tho. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it, Bernie.
All right. So I want to find out what are the big issues for you. You heard what Tho and I thought were the big issues. Let me take a look at your comments. I want to look through them and see what you thought about the debate last night as well. And we'll do that right after this.
It's a hot time in Florida, and my friend Ryan can make sure your air conditioning is running at peak efficiency. He could even install a new one, built to a higher standard, American standard. Find out more at PCAirRepair.com. Don't let back pain and neck pain get you down. Find relief at Brown Chiropractic Center on St. Andrews Boulevard in Panama City. Dr. Sherry Brown helps people heal naturally with chiropractic adjustments and deep tissue massage. Call 769-3777.
All right. Jason said Griff's ego is what got mad. Yeah, he looked a little bit upset, very upset at times. Michael, yeah, Tho knows. I like to say Tho knows. Jay says Brian truly represents where our party is currently, or at least, well, I tell you, I'm not part of the GOP. Okay, I'm an independent. I am no party affiliate. I've had to divorce the Republican Party twice because I get so upset with them. I can't vote in the primary, and I'm okay with that. But I will say that Democrats seem to hate me, and most Republicans seem to agree with me most of the time. But there's big fight within the Republican Party. I can see. Let's see here what you guys are talking about. So thank you, Jason. I appreciate that. So Matt says Cullen will try his hardest not to take another loss. And what he's talking about is the campaign manager. And I got to tell you, this should be enough alone right here to not vote for Griff Griffiths. Arthur Cullen, who had a fake Facebook account named Alex Cantone and was disgusting, would post disgusting things about people, is Griff Griffiths' campaign manager. I mean, that alone to me, I mean, if you're voting for Griff, you're voting for Arthur Cullen, you're voting for the establishment, you're voting for the St. Joe type good old boy stuff. That's just the truth. So I agree with you on that. And I am going to be voting in the general election if he's there, and I hope he is, for Brian Cloudis. He has really shown an incredible willingness to work. He's knocked on more than 15,000 doors. Nobody's ever done that in Bay County. I don't think so. And I think he's shooting for twice as many. Griffiths was pretty much saying, so what, knocking on doors? Big whoop. You know, I've been doing the work. I don't know. I think it matters to some people. And in my opinion, that difference among Republicans, one of the first things Griff said is he doesn't like being called a rhino, a Republican in name only. Well, then don't be one. In my opinion, Griff is a crony, Griff is a rhino, and Griff is associated with some pretty bad people. And I think Bay County's crazy to send Griff Griffiths to the Capitol to represent you, because he wouldn't represent you. He would represent the good old boys. And so is the GOP done with that on a local level, state level, which this is, and even on a federal level? We'll see. We'll see which direction the GOP wants to go. I sure don't want to see status quo, I'll tell you that. But the debate was well run. Darrell Day did a great job. George Norris, the GOP committee man, opened it up. I thought he did a great job. And it was important to see debates. We don't see enough debates. We don't see enough of how they act under pressure, how they respond to tough questions. And I thought it was definitely worth attending and definitely worth talking about. I think that we learned a little bit from it too. All right, I want to thank one more sponsor, and this is a great group, the biggest grassroots organization in America, Americans for Prosperity. Americans for Prosperity is the largest grassroots organization advancing policies that help people improve their lives. AFP Florida seeks to end corporate welfare, expand energy options, and reform education and healthcare by giving people more choices. Sign up today and volunteer at americansforprosperity.org. All right, that's a wrap for me. Thank you for being with me, and I will see you soon.